clip. Just gonna sound check here, guys, making a couple of changes, doing our best efforts to improve this. Let us know if that sounds any better. We are approaching the start of race number 2. The Stewart 34 fleet had a general recall in race number 2 at the first attempt. So we're resetting and going to have another go at it. It's the 4-minute signal. Sorry, no, it's the 5-minute signal. Yeah, race committee making a couple of tweaks to the line. We saw a lot of boats starting down at the pin end and the general recall, maybe indicating the breeze is clocked a little bit round to the left. The current tidal conditions are right on high tide now, which means the current is going to be sweeping out of the harbour from right to left. That should favour the left-hand side of the track. Remember, behind us we've got the Auckland Harbour Bridge. And the current flow is very strong underneath the main span. Don't mind me, I'm just out here with my lunch box. Bit of Kiwi ingenuity. So Alan putting in the hard yards there to make it happen, to bring all the action to you. We've changed microphones.
Alright, how long we got?
We've got, it's inside. That was the 4-minute hooter that you heard before, so these boats will start racking up here pretty shortly. About 2 minutes to go here in the start. Just gotta get my head right in here, you know. The hat backwards, we're all business today. Breeze starting to moderate a little bit here, which is pretty usual at this time of the evening. The temperature starts to drop. That sort of west coast sea breeze that you often get out here in front of the Royal New Zealand Yacht Squadron is very shifty off the land. And you get those puffs coming out of that top West Haven, the southern West Haven entrance. Be interesting to see how the boats rack up in this one. I still quite like sort of windward end of the line, trying to hold the fleet left, but if we start seeing these big left-hand shifts roll through, which looks like it's starting to clock that way now, then the boats down at the leeward end will get out of the current earlier and potentially into a position where they can tack on the port and cross in front. Remember, the boats that are on the right hand side on starboard have right of way when they converge together. So, as Mr. Dixon always said to me and Mr. Pilkington, if you start at the pin, it's a long way around the outside. I think we might have, do we have our Long Beach sailing community tuned in? It's Scotty Dixon with a... Yeah, right, probably that.
Just tell everybody where we are.
Thanks, Scotty. Well, yeah, especially those tuning in from overseas. We are in Auckland Harbour here. New Zealand Warriors, the Stewart 34 season championship. That was the 1 minute signal behind me. We start to see all the boats setting up. Again, it's this congestion at the windward end of the start line. This last minute's all about trying to manage your boat speed. You want to be hitting the start line at maximum speed. These are big, slow, heavy boats, so they take a long time. It's not like your conventional sailing dinghy where you can sit on the start line and pull the trigger late. It's all about keeping the big buses moving. It looks like, again, it's Playboy at the windward end here. Guy Pilkington who's going to get the windward start. And there's the gun. They are off. Clean start this time. Another nice start at the windward end. So we see President with the early tack out off the right. I'm just getting set up here in my boat. Bit of a helmet shield going on. It right in there. Like a spaceman.
Just nice and quiet though.
Yeah, it looks like Prince Sal didn't get away all that well. I'm going to tack off here after being squeezed out. And well, what we've seen in these boats is tacks are just so expensive. They've got those big overlapping jibs, which are nose. And when you tack over and go through a manoeuvre, it's a long way for the crew, the back end of that genoa to get pass around the mast and around the shrouds before you can actually trim it back in. So a lot of finesse is required from the teams to get the steering right and the timing of the cut and the speed of the trim back on. We usually see the bowman helping kick the crew to genoa around the shroud so that it doesn't get caught. We'll see a nice one here. You see the bowman on the front there passing the crew around, and a pretty nice tack there from Batari. As I alluded to earlier, the breeze is starting to moderate a little bit. We've still got probably sort of 12 to 15 knots. It was President that came off the lead end of the start line. But it's definitely passion up here on this left hand side that for the time being seems to have got away the best. Remember this current up on this left hand side of the course now. The current's fighting against the boat, so obviously if you can get up out into the shallower waters where there's less friction, you effectively sail faster through the water. Now this breeze is so far into the left, obviously makes it a long port tack upwind. It's not necessarily always about getting the best start early on, it's trying to set yourself up for when the boats tack over on the port, you've got the best lane and you're in the best position to obviously be out of the current like we talked about, but benefit from the wind shifts. And we're seeing the boats down on the right hand side of the course now. Now it's their turn to tack over and their phase of wind, and looking pretty strong out there. So we make our way over to another battle that we've seen plenty of, Prince Hal and Playboy. At the moment it's Playboy with the early advantage. Nice shot here of Prince Hal. Remember, they didn't have the best start, so to to have closed up the distance to the leaders is a nice job from those boys. They're obviously sailing the boat fast, but they've set themselves up in a spot where they're going to have to do 2 more manoeuvres before this top mark. They'll have to tack the boat twice, and well, what we can already see is, if we pan across to the right here, the starboard tack is set up on the inside. Oh, interesting call there to tack away. I think they had these 2 boats under control and could have carted them all the way out to the left hand side. This Playboy here is now being given a bit of a get out of jail free card, if you ask me. Here we go, Playboy into the tack. It's Guy Pilkington. Boat that was ex-owned by Roy Dixon, Scotty Dixon and brother Chris. Very proud and successful sailing family. At the top mark for race 2, it's Playboy ahead of Prince Hal. And we're keeping our eye out for Passion here. Those 3 boats who have, it's been the trend of today at the front of the fleet. Remember, Prince Hal won the first race, and it was Playboy in second, but the roles are reversed in this one. So we see one of the crew losing their hat. Around this offset spreader mark, which is designed to separate the boats coming upwind to these front leaders who are going round for the spinnaker hoist. Prince Hal with a little bit of a early set there. The halyard not making to the top of the rig before the spinnaker set. I think we're alright to downwind, we're good, right? Like this? Yeah. Can get out of my box. Prince Hal with a bit of work to do to try and close this gap up to Playboy. So we see them going through the jibe. Bowman on the foredeck there. Changing that spinnaker pole over. Obviously, as the breeze gets up, these boats are sailing deeper and deeper angles, so the manoeuvres become pretty slim to none on the downwind. But given the current sweeping from left to right on this downwind as we look at it, boats opting to jibe early early on the ley line, and obviously that current will sweep them down onto that bottom gate. And well, as they approach the bottom gate, it's the decision, do you go around the left mark or the right mark? And I think now that the current's turned and starting to rip out of the harbour, it's a pretty easy decision to go around the left gate for me. Puts yourself up current of your competitors, sail less distance to the top mark. It's an easy manoeuvre because obviously the boats can go around with the pole still clipped onto the mast.
I think we're going okay for audio at the moment.
That's what we like to hear.
Pun intended.
You see what I did there? It was quite clever, wasn't it? We see Prince Hal looking like they're going to potentially split gates here, and well, I'm not sure that's the right call. They're putting themselves down tide of Playboy, meaning they're just going to have more distance to sail upwind. Obviously in this part of the harbour the current's pretty darn strong. top mark for the first, sorry, the bottom mark for the first time. It's Playboy rounding in front. Looking like they're happy to extend out to this right hand side. Across to the left, and it's Brent Howell with a little bit of an untidy rounding. But the real battle line is happening here in third and fourth places. President there and Passion both looking like they're fighting for that right hand turn, which will open the door for Pahi and Psyche here to potentially break left. We've talked about it being the favoured side. Prism in a bit of a kerfuffle on the downwind there, getting tangled up with the boat in front. This bottom mark comes pretty quickly. You see them hoisting the jibs and removing the spinnaker poles, dropping the spinnaker, trying to trim both sails on as they go around the mark. A lot of coordination amongst the crews to make all of those things happen cleanly. And obviously as the breeze gets up, the loads increase. Looking very, very late on the drop here on Psyche. This isn't going to go well for them. Oh dear. We've got jibs wrapped around the forestay. The spinnaker with the halyards right out. No one pulling on the foot of the spinnaker to pull it in. And with the tide going in the direction it is, they could end up on the race committee boat. Expect this to get exciting, folks. Oh, the spinnaker could end up wrapped around the committee boat. It's going to be tight. Oh dear, there we go. Oh, goodness. I tell you what. I mean, they're not out of trouble yet. You've got Patari coming up underneath. If you've just joined us, it's carnage out here in the Watermatta. Prism trying to sail upwind with a spinnaker out to leeward. Not looking like they've got any intention of dropping it anytime soon. I'll tell you what, the VMG upwind's actually not that bad considering. It took forever for Patari to get through to leeward. Wow, exciting times. The crew in overdrive trying to make sure they get that spinnaker in without trawling it. Goodness gracious, I've seen it all. The Stewart 34s again coming up with the goods. I'm in my box, starting to mist up a little bit. Making our way back up to the front of the fleet.
Just tell everybody where we are and what we're doing.
If you've just joined us, we are out on the harbour here in front of the Royal New Zealand Yacht Squadron, the Watermatta, just out off the northern side of the Team New Zealand bases, and we are here on a Monday night. It's the Stewart 34 racing, one of the most famous classes of New Zealand boat. It's one design racing. In saying that, there's a bit of a difference in some of the layout on the boats, and obviously you can see from the pictures that a bit of a difference in crew numbers as well, and quite a unique class of boat, being very heavy with these big overlapping genoas. On a more conventional boat, you see the genoa sort of come back and set up either inside a side stay or just short of the overlap. Seems like more of the traditional old school boats have these big overlapping sails, and obviously that means the balance of the boat is pretty out of whack. You've got a lot of sail up the front, and the Genoa is arguably bigger than the mainsail, which is an interesting dynamic. But we're at the front here, and it's a nice beat from Prince Hal, who looked like they went around that bottom mark quite far behind Playboy. Playboy doing a good job of spreading their elbows and making that boat as wide as possible. Remember, on that first race it was Prince Hal who came from behind on the second top mark and passed Playboy on the run, setting up in a similar position. This time Playboy with about an extra boat length of cushion, so might have a little bit more breathing room, but it's all going to come down to the set here. Who can have a better spinnaker hoist? We see the pole out on Playboy. Should start to see the brace being sneaked here. Looking like they're a little bit late. Let's hear the skipper, Guy Pilkington, calling for the hoist. Looks like the chute's going up nice and clean. It's not caught anywhere. The brace comes back and the spinnaker sets. Not bad. Not bad at all. We pan across the... Pretty tidy as well. Next job is to get the jib down out of the sky. Here it comes. And then we'll expect to see these boats sail not too far before they jibe. Right as I say that, Prince Hal taking the initiative on a little earlier and jibing in before Playboy. Remember, the current is sweeping from left to right as we look at it here, meaning it's a long port on the upwinds and a long port on the downwinds. The boys struggling to get the brace back here. Pole was up against the forestay, which is obviously risky when the breeze is up like this. You can wrap the pole can bend around the front of the forestay if you don't get it braced back in time. Prince Hal trying to chase down our race leaders and overall season leaders, Playboy. Not too many options here for the trailing boat to get on the breeze of Playboy. They took the initiative early and after setting the spinnaker, jibed and tried to set themselves up to affect the wind of the boat in front, but unfortunately this angle down to the finish is a little bit too tight, so Playboy won't have any issues in fending off Prince Hal's challenge, which will mean they'll both come away from this race with a first and a second score today, so they'll be tied going into race number 3. What these two have done a nice job is though they've managed to extend out from the rest of the fleet, build a little bit of a buffer. Little bit of a swell that's come from one of the Fuller's ferries. Plenty of action out here on the Waitemata Harbour this evening. Approaching the finish of race 2, it's Playboy coming down to take the race win. There it is, race 2 winners, Playboy. Extending on the final run. About a 15 to 20 second deficit back to Prince Hal, who showed a good set of wheels for me after not the best start. They had to tack over early and weren't exactly in phase with the win, but obviously got a good turn of boat speed to close that back up and, well, be pushing the front runners to all the way to the finish there. You can see over my shoulder here there's a big gap back to the rest of the fleet. See the puff going in. Time to get back in the box. I'd say I don't do my best. Well, I said it was a big gap, but I didn't realise it was that far. It's been probably coming on close to 90 seconds or so since Prince Hal crossed the finish line, and in front of Prince Hal was Playboy, so a couple of, probably a solid 2 minutes or so back to the third place getter, so not such a straightforward race course at the moment. So we see Pahi set up, almost losing the Spinnaker halyard there. We've seen that go bad for one team today. Definitely not what you want coming across the finish line. But no dramas for them. They'll get that tucked away nicely and come back firing for race 3. Again, another big spread back to the next competitor.
Let's just sit downwind. So, I'm gonna get in the box for a second, Steely.
I don't know. Yeah, no, that's not going to happen. There's only room for one in here. You can take the box.
I'll take the box. So, everyone, we've
You've got to get right in
got
there.
to get right in the box. Been working pretty hard on this audio for you to try to get everything sorted. This is how committed we are. This is how committed we are to bringing you live sailing here in Auckland, New Zealand. A big shout out to my mate Chris Steele for putting up with the less than savoury working conditions that I put him in. This is how we're doing it upwind, and then that's how we're doing it downwind. Upwind, downwind. This is a...
You're out of the box.
Oh, I'm in the box. All right, let's have a look at these sailors coming down here now, Steely. Passion is just about to cross the finish line. Yeah, focus on them. Passion is about to cross that finish line there. That's a massive, massive difference between the top boats and the rest of the fleet, followed by Princess, who are playing it safe. Even though Princess is in the extras division, they have opted to not go with their Spinnaker, and it actually has worked. They've managed to finish in front of Pateri and Psyche, who seems to be having a bit of a shocker tonight, and then Prism has also opted not to go for that Spinnaker as well. Psyche has got some pretty gun sailors on board. We've got Bradley McLaughlin, who was meant to co-commentate last week, is on the bow. Alistair Gifford on there, who's just recently won the Musto. Won the Musto.
No, it was the
Harkin.
Geordie won the Musto.
Okay, let's you're the match racer here, not me. So where are you focusing that camera now?
I'm just having a look at the beautiful sky.
And we've just thank you everybody for being patient with us tonight, but this is how committed we are to bringing sailing. I'm going to put Steely back in the box. I'm going to take control of that camera again. How are we going for comments there, Steely?
Yeah, we're getting some good ones.
All right, I'm going to give this back to you and take you control of that. Get back in the box, boy.
I don't mind a bit of box action, Sue Ellen. Tell you what, it's good to be back. As long as it's not a dog box, I'm okay.
Alright, so we're going to come up into the next race.
Just trying to have a bit of fun here. It's been a long week. Tell you what, it's been a long week. Itching to get back out on the golf course. But for now, we're Stewart 34 racing, and well, plenty of excitement. Good breeze strength at the moment as we get ready for race number 3. Getting plenty of interesting looks from the sailors who, well, let's just say they don't know the lengths that some of us go to make this happen, to bring the sport to the viewers. It's a spectator sport. See the class flag going up there, 5 minutes. Followed by the U flag in this one team, so the stakes are a little bit higher in this one. U flag penalty is a penalty flag, and what that means is if any boat crosses the start line inside the last minute, then they'll be automatically disqualified from the race. For the more traditional sailors, the U flag is a new penalty flag that's been introduced probably, I don't know, in the last 10 years or so. It's effectively a black flag, but the only difference is if there's a general recall, the black flag boats carry over into the next start, whereas the U flag system that we're under currently is a general recall, and all those boats get put back into the mix and get another chance. So if you break the line in the last minute, you're still going to get penalised, but the idea is that obviously if you're having a general recall under a penalty flag, and it might just be a issue for the race committee, they might not have set such a good line. So U flag start. And again, just going back to the conditions, definitely seems like the tide is starting to suck out of that harbour pretty strong now. We see the beat become more skewed one way. It's a longer port tack upwind, which means the boats starting up by the race committee end will effectively already be sailing less distance to the top mark, because they're starting up current of the ones down at the pin end. So a little bit of a cheat code there. And to talk about the strength of the current, well, it's probably water starting to flow out at about 1.5 knots at the moment, so it's pretty strong, but there'll definitely be a little bit more kick to come. We have a look at the box setup one more time. There we go, inside a minute. No boats threatening to break the start line at the moment. Definitely a much later approach here, but what we'll be able to see is as the boats start to trim on and sail at the line with the current pushing them down, the windward end of the start line will really open up. So that's why you see Playboy hanging back there at the moment. They know they've got Prince Howell above them. They're trying to make sure they don't leave room for the boat behind to slot inside. It's going to be looking like Playboy's trying to shut this gap here to Prince Howell. Prince Howell swings up inside. It's big luff. And it's Playboy who's looking very close to the line here. Guy Pilkington doing just enough to keep his boat behind the start line without breaking early. Remember, it was a penalty flag, but in doing so, scrubbed off all of his boat speed. So it was Passion in the middle of the line that got the pick of the lot in terms of starts. Expect to see Prince Howell tack off pretty soon here. And I wouldn't be surprised to see Playboy tack with. There's a little bit of a left shift there. Remember, we know the long tack upwind is port. Playboy just opting to extend there, so they're obviously feeling like they've got the boats to leeward all locked in. Play the percentages here. And they'll be trying to set themselves up to tack across in one of these left-hand shifts that come down. There's Psyche rolling over into attack. It looks like the breeze is in the right phase again at the moment here, so Playboy, who led off that windward end, doing a nice job of staying in phase with the breeze and sailing fast. It was Passion who was further down the line. They had a great start, but seemed like they've just been
falling out of this right hand pressure at the moment into more of a sort of left phase breeze, and that's just meant that the windward boats, the boats that start at the windward end of gauge distance, and it always gets a little bit nerve-wracking coming up this left hand sort of corner here, because for the viewers at home, there's a breakwater wall that separates the harbour here from the marina, and obviously you can't see the breeze past the breakwater wall, so it's just a wall of rocks that isn't high at all when it's high tide. It's a very narrow sort of breakwater wall, but obviously there's a pocket in front of that of sort of no wind, and often you don't know what's coming until quite late on. As we see Passion coming out of the left here, and it's Playboy just tacking over. They've come out to a nice lead. See down on the right hand side of the course there, big congestion of boats, and unfortunately for that group, they're all sailing in the max current at the moment underneath the main span of the harbour bridge there. The water really floods out of there, and those guys are all just pushing a lot of tide at the moment, whereas these boats on the left, they're already on the other side of that channel, and that's why you see the boat speeds a lot better on the side of the course. But in saying that, just now we're starting to get some right hand shifts for these guys, so as we converge back to the middle of the course, we'll get a good idea. At the moment, to my eye, it looks like the left hand side is winning out. That's Playboy, and also Passion, but these guys all sitting right out on the side of the boat, trying to project their weight outboard. The breeze is up, starting to get a little bit chilly as well. Quite a nice evening here in Auckland. Plenty of cloud cover, but temperatures aren't too bad during the day at the moment. They're pretty nice. We're in summer. The southwesterly breeze, really shifty for the sailors, and quite challenging when you're in big boats, because obviously tacking is slow. We've talked about those big overlapping genoas. Trying to avoid tacks as much as you can, so you've got to be pretty accurate with picking your spots. We're heading up to the top gate here, the top mark with the spreader mark as well, and I would expect to see the lead boats almost set and then go straight into a jibe in this one. We've talked about that current getting stronger. Just rotating here. Here we are, top mark first time. And it's Playboy who's sailed a good upwind beat. Remember, they're going to have to go quite far past this mark because the current is sweeping from left to right. Pretty nice tack there. They'll see the bowman on the foredeck there getting the pole up and ready. You'll see the trimmers start to sneak the brace forward and the kite halyard up. This mark's going to come up pretty quickly though. Need a good set and an early jibe to make sure that they don't make too life hard for themselves at that bottom gate. A little bit late on the hoist there. No need to push it though, obviously, with a nice lead. Here's Pahi in second. They're having a nice race. And it's Passion.
Passion who come into the spreader mark in third here. You can hear Thomas Rudder on the bow calling for the hoist. But this is where the action is going to be. Batari just in front of Prince Hal, who remember got forced out to the right hand side of the course early. Different approach here on the bow. They've got a kite being hoisted out of a spinnaker bag. Prince Hal on the charge, trying to chase down. And then it's Psyche, remember. Psyche, who was right up at the top of the lead going into today with the season. But you can see they're heavily undercrewed. President leads just in front of Prism. See if Prism get a spinnaker in the air. Remember they had a pretty exciting rounding in the second race of the day. Almost had their spinnaker.
From Nick Ignot Johnson, because he's used to picking up the top mark and the bottom mark when he races in Stewart 34s.
Yep, and obviously either he's on his phone while he's on Psyche or he's called a sickie and letting his team down. Either or, not good signs for Nick. But if he's not out here, well, at least he's tuning in. Wouldn't want to miss it. Bit of FOMO, as they say.
Right. How are you going there, Steely? It's been a challenging evening. We've had all sorts of dramas go on, both on the water and on the trusty media boat. A bit of a recap from the start. The first downwind with the boat that lost its spinnaker. And just did some good upwind action with the kite. But we're on Psyche here now.
We see Bradley McLaughlin on the bow. Oh, he's seen the camera. Get the hand signals going. Oh yeah, head nods.
So normally there's anything between 3 and 4 races, and given the conditions, they may go for the 4th race tonight. What do you reckon?
Oh, don't tell me that. Yeah, pretty exciting. The boats are coming down to the bottom mark for the first time in race 3. We see Prince Hal and Patari in a nice little battle here for 4th place. Interesting that Playboy opted to go around that right mark as we look at it in this one, putting themselves down current of the next boat. In saying that though, maybe the call from Guy Pilkington there is to just cross the channel early and try and get out to that left hand side. Starting to set up to get ready to get back in the box. Got a bit of a late approach here for Patari, who are still going downwind at the bottom gate. You see Nick Clark getting handed the Genoa sheet there. Sailing with his dad George. Pretty wide on the rounding in that one. Coming into the bottom mark. Prism opting to head out to the right of the course as we look at it from here. And President with a nice, well, pretty aggressive hard turn around there, but oh, look at that pressure. Big gust rolling out of West Haven here. See the boats tip over. Everything loads up. None of the crew quite managing to get out onto the side of the boat here, so maybe guilty of leaving everything a little bit late at that bottom mark. So we see them roll into attack.
But it's Psyche on the hunt here, trying to just set up on the windward hip of Patari, who left a big gap inside them at the bottom mark. Psyche looking like they're setting up to tack. Oh, a little bit, got caught a little bit there. Genoa, and you can see just how hard the crew have to work to get the Genoa snapped in. Alistair Gifford there on the main sheet. Helmsman Paul. I think, I haven't been out for a while, but I think Paul shares the driving with Nick EJ, so nice to have a boat owner that gives opportunities to the young guns coming through. Prince Hal here, who've been battling a little bit in this race, calling starboard on Patari, who are going to go for the duck. So Patari, the giveaway boat there, had to cross behind Prince Hal because they weren't going to be able to clear in front. Prince Hal looking like they're going to set up for attack here. Maybe dragging a bit of a spinnaker sheet down underneath. The Dixon clan would be not happy about that. Tidy ship's a fast ship, as they say. Left-hand wind shift at the moment on the course. See all the boats on port tack at the moment. As we approach the top mark for the final time in race number 3. Making our way up to the front runners here. Still looks to my eye like Playboy holding a slender lead. Well, as we get closer and the boats become a little bit more visible out of my box, it looks like they've got quite the lead. Extending on that second upwind. Oh, big broach there. Hashing. Broaching out. Meaning they just got too much heel when that gust hit. The rudder cavitated it. The flow washed on one side of the rudder. There was turbulence and the boat spun out. Good news for the Playboy fans. And I'm out of my box. Just seeing a comment there from Scotty Dixon that we've got the infamous, legendary, none other than Johnny Bernson watching from somewhere in Sweden, no doubt. Johnny, who's very accomplished on the World Match Racing Tour, winner of a number of events.
Unsavoury language there coming from the Pahi. Things are getting a little bit tense on board.
Well, I think it's a bit of fever, but we keep just at the top mark here. We could see a little bit of drama unfolding. Watch this. Psyche's coming in on port with no rights. Prince Hal's going to duck. Oh boy, there's going to be an incident here. Prince Hal having a duck behind. It was President that came across on starboard. Psyche was sticking in it at the top, but almost looked like President
Didn't quite have the boat speed to get to Psyche, but it's always tricky when you're coming in on that port ley line. You don't have any rights at all. See the crew set up for the spinnaker hoist here. Speaking of animated crews and teams, I tell you, Johnny Burnson, you usually hear him before you see him out there on the racetrack. Don't always understand what he's saying, but always fun to race against and with. Patari going for the spinnaker hoist. You see quite a different strategy on Patari. They've got the spinnaker bag up the front and they hoist it out of that pocket. Maybe something to look into for them. Seems to take a lot longer to get the kite up in the air. I think that's potentially because the bowman has to wait for the jib to get eased before he can get that spinnaker all the way up and hoisting. As we're on the final downwind run here, Prince Hal trying to make some ground back after a bad start. Remember, going into this race, they'd posted a first and a second today, matching the scores of Playboy. But at the moment, they're currently sitting in 6th place, so they've got some work to do. Nice shot here of Psyche with just 6 crew. I tell you, these boats difficult to sail at the best of times, let alone when you're undercrewed heavily. We make our way down to the front runners. It was Playboy who won, so another first place for them. Followed by Passion in second, and President in third. Sorry, Pahi in third. And then if you pan across to the committee boat there, Sue Ellen, see the Come With and Hail flag displayed, which could mean that they want to do a 4th race potentially.
Let's just sit down and take a break. Oh, Steely. So, just thanks everyone for the patience. We've got people watching in LA and in Sweden, in Australia. Yeah, tell us where you're watching from. Steely, let's just show everybody the setup that we've.
Shout out to the Sistema group for this beautiful box. We're having some sound issues in the wind, so I've got to get right up in the box here. Right up in the box. The full facial. Coming into the finish, it's Prince Hal, who just look like they're going to get pipped by President. So unfortunate finish for them. That'll be big in the scores. They crossed the finish line in 6th place. And it's Patari coming in a little bit over the ley line. Struggling to keep that spinnaker set, but fortunately for them, there's a bit of a gap back to Prism. Difficult boats to sail in these wind conditions. The breeze sort of 12 to maybe up to 15 knots at times out of the southwest direction, so blowing off the shore. And obviously with that, there's a lot of shift in the breeze. It's very unstable, gusty conditions. We've seen some of the boats already today get caught out. Prism had an eventful bottom mark rounding, almost wrapping the spinnaker around the race committee boat. We pan across here to our non-spinnaker division. Princess with another handy lead. That's almost a nudie run, Sue Ellen, I think, looking back up the course. The next one's the next boat in the non-spinnaker division hasn't even gone around the offset mark, so to my thinking I believe that is a nudie run. If you get beaten by a full leg, it's
got some feedback that's been coming. Oh, mate, are you having fun out here? Because I nearly lost my marbles earlier, didn't I?
Yeah, well, it's fair to say you were pretty animated, Sue Ellen, and a little bit uncomfortable for me sitting next to you. Never quite seen you throw your toys like that, but you know, that goes to say a lot about just how important the job is of someone in the media, just passionate about it, trying to bring you the racing in its best form, and well, got high standards, and standards that are hard to live up to sometimes, but with a lot of ingenuity and quick thinking, we found a way.
We did, and someone has asked if that little microphone there is actually a piece of your mustache. That was Scotty Dixon. Yes.
No, well, Scotty, obviously, like we said, we've had some issues with the sound, with the wind, so you know we've stuck a couple of pieces of padding around the top lip to try and help muffle that wind. Hence, also we have the box as well. So, yeah, I mean it gets lost in there a little bit sometimes, but no, yep, that's a piece of sound equipment. Chopper Steel.
I'm sorry, everybody. We're just doing what we've got to do. Get back in your box up, Win. Okay, we're going in for a
head
race.
to box. And we're into it. It's 4 minutes to go. No U-flag start. This is the fourth and final race of the evening. The lead boat from today has been Playboy, who's managed to post a 1-2-1. So they'll be looking for just something solid here in the last race to back up what's been a good day. But there's been plenty of action out here as we see some tricky wind conditions coming down from the southwest, blowing off West Haven, the tank farm. We've got the current sweeping from right to left, so it's making life very difficult for the boats. Long port tacks. The race committee boat seems to open up on this ley line. Potentially the boats down at the pin end don't really seem to get any sort of effect from these right hand gusts that come down, and they kind of just fall out of the pressure. So certainly appears to be a plan of starting up at the race committee end to windward of the other competitors, sailing basically all the way out to the left hand ley line, so a bit of a drag race out to the left to get out of the current, and then once you're out of the current, trying to pick your lane across to make sure that you're close enough to get the left hand shifts but you don't overlay when doing so. Remember, these big heavy slow boats, and they don't go any faster when you put the bow down. So we see Pelican coming across the finish line in the non-spinnaker division. Pelagien 2. Little nice little comment there from AJ Reid about controlling the peak. Definitely something that you don't need to tell me, AJ. I tell you. Sue Ellen was peaking early, sending me messages about being late to get out here today, and well, we were 7 minutes out. We were out here 7 minutes before the start. It's a good example of peaking early. But nonetheless, we're out here and the action's heating up. This is race number 4. And we're if the last 3 have been anything to go by, you'll expect this to be a high action packed race. Good shots of the race committee boat here. Starting under U flag, so no boat's able to break the start line early. There it is. 1 minute to go.
And again, all of the boats looking like they're going to try and set up to win this race committee into the line. Just Prince Hal, who's out to the right of our shot here, looking like they're going to end up further down at the pin. We've seen it's been Playboy who's been owning this Windward end on their own without anyone challenging too hard. Looks like they're just on the ley line at the moment in this one, so potentially a chance for a boat to come in late and squeeze in between them and the committee boat. But what we've seen time and time again is it's all about keeping these boats up to speed. And Playboy looks like they're trying to do just that right now. They've got Passion tucked away on their windward hip, and there's the gun. The race committee end are a long way back. Long way back. It's Prince Hal down at the leeward end of the line who opted to stay. We see Passion early. Thomas Rudder on the bow of Passion, giving me some sort of gesture there. Wasn't sure if it was a peace sign or something a little bit more colourful as he crossed behind through our wake. Shots here of Playboy, who again started up, but it looks like Prince Hal's going to attack first. And I like the position they're in at the moment. Left-hand wind shift. I mean, the only boat that was on the line at the start. Everyone else guilty of being a little bit late. And doing everything they needed to do to bounce back after a 6th place in race 3. They'll be eager to win this one, and well, for their sake they'll be hoping that Playboy's deep in the fleet. Big right hand wind shift at the moment here, which will be nice for a Playboy. It's Prince Hal who does come across in front, but it's all about pressure from here. Who's going to get the puff first? Which way is it going to shift? Remember, Prince Hal, now that they're on the right hand side of the course, will be effectively in more current. Remember, the current's affecting the boats negatively. It's pushing straight back into the face of them. So if you can get out of the current out to the left hand side and have any sniff of left hand wind shifts, then you start to lee bow that tide, the tide sweeping you up towards the top mark. Such a controversial topic, that lee bow near the tide area. Following Prince Hal here, we're getting nice and close up the backside. Almost reached out and touched them. These guys working really hard to try and get it chasing pack. And actually, if the breeze stays in the left, then they're able to lay up to the windward mark. The tide will be helping them sweep from right to left. However, if it clocks right down these boys, then they might lose out to some of the boats that they crossed in front of early on. As we pan across, you can see the chasing pack. Psyche getting bounced out again, having to do a few too many manoeuvres. They wouldn't be enjoying that too. And here's Passion. Remember, getting spat out to the right hand side early. Puff coming on and the boat leaning over. Logan Dunning back on place finish at the 49er World Championships.
So it is Prince Al who's got that ley line nailed. They'll lead. Then the chase is on between Pahi and Playboy at the moment. Pahi's on the inside and overlapped, but Playboy's gauging up to them and might be able to start affecting the breeze before they get to that zone. And if Playboy can break the overlap and be clear ahead when they hit that zone, then they can shut the... They can't tackle, they can shut the door. You see this? This is the offset mark that's in picture at the moment, so the top mark's quite far down. Playboy's carting them up here. But actually the boats are still up down. Until them try and break the overlap. Oh, there's a bit of yelling. Oh boy. Is he going to give him room? This could get tight. Oh no, he's going to commit to going down. But what that's done is it's brought Passion back into the mix. Passion, there's Logan Dunningbeck. Trim it on, Logan. Trim it on, mate. Remember the tide sweeping these guys down the course, so potentially an opportunity for the boat behind, wide in the hoist. So we see Playboy is really wide in the hoist, at Pahi inside. Passion's going to put the bow down one inside them as well, so almost trawling the spinnaker there on Pahi. They got to get the brace back though. Oh, looking up at the top here, Halyard caught around the batten of Passion. That's a tough one. There he goes, just coming free off one of them there. There we go. Able to get that up now, but that's expensive. That costs your boat lengths. Following Pahi here. So you can see there's plenty going on board. Talking about jibing over here. Talking about jibing. Not too sure that you want to if you're on ley line. Wow, it's high octane action, isn't it?
Tell you what, this is hard work, Steely. I don't know about you. I mean, you're talking into a you're talking into a piece of your mustache and holding cameras and trying to keep the audio going really well. I think everything's turned out okay.
Yep. Just head down in my box. Coming down the first run here of race 4, dare I say it, Prince Al's had an absolute blinder, and they lead by the biggest margin we've seen out here today. And I think that's a real teller of just how fast these guys are sailing the boat, because, well, they went around that top mark clean and they're just getting further and further ahead. That also just goes to show how tough the racing is when you're back in the fleet. You get bounced around and these boats are so difficult to maneuver, so heavy. An interesting decision was again to go around this left mark. That does put them up current, but in this left-hand wind shift at the moment, the boats are now effectively starting to leap out the tide, so if you take the opposite mark, that's putting you in a bit more of a better position to bend up to the top gate. Psyche coming in the bottom mark, and while they're leaving everything a little bit late considering they're a little bit undercrewed, but they've got a pretty slick operation here, so let's see if they can get that spinnaker down nice and cleanly. Here it comes. At risk of losing it under the bow at the moment. Oh, this could troll. Oh, Brad McLaughlin, has he saved it? Oh, here it goes. Oh no. Oh no. Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh, that just a good example of just left it a little bit too late, and they lost their head underneath the bow. You see the crew pulling it back on board. The halyard has gone under the bow, the head of the kite, and they've had to turn back downwind to try and suck that back in. Maybe if they can get hold of the head, they'll be able to just untie the head and retie the halyard. So we see Princess with a pretty nifty late move at the mark there, leaving the pole attached to the jib sheet, and then a late call to jibe the jib over. And well, important to mention in this one that Princess, who sails in the non-spinnaker division, is actually in front of two of the boats with the spinnaker division, so well, they didn't sail downwind with a spinnaker.
Alright, here we go. This could very well be the last upwind of the night. So stealing back into the wind stopping box, and let's go.
Prism. Oh, almost catching the one of the other fleet's marks there. That could have gone bad if it was wrapped around the rudder. We move up the course. Atari out here on this left hand side. You can see big left hand wind shifts here. The breeze coming out of West Haven, the southern exit, where you see the super yachts parked. If you're just tuning in from overseas, we're out here for the Stewart 34 racing Monday night in Auckland, New Zealand. Breeze is moderating slowly down to about 13 knots at the moment. You can see the boats still with plenty of power. Those big overlapping genoas up the front. We're looking at Batari here as they track upwind. Maybe guilty of being slightly over the ley line. Nick Clark and George Clark on the back of the bus there. We power up towards the front. Still has a nice lead over the chasing bunch. Oh, just had a look of our friends who won the JJs, the 18 footers. Just saw Maddie. It was Maddie Stevens. Pretty impressive effort from those Kiwi boys, the Honda Marine, to win the JJs, but goes to show the calibre of sailors that we have out here tonight. Well, every week I should say. In the action-packed Stewart 34s. Are we going to see some more action here between Playboy? Oh, we could see a tight top mark here, starboard port. Is there room? Let's expect to see Playboy just tack and just clear in front. Looks like they will, but it's a tight ley line for the trailing boat. You see them just having a squeeze up. Pahi having a squeeze up around the top mark there. Playboy with a small lead over third place. Remember, Prince Hal is round in front and looking like they're going to do a horizon job on the rest of the fleet. Playboy with an important hoist, and it's a good one. Pahi closely followed by Passion. You can hear Thomas Rudder calling the hoist nice and early. They're getting the bow down inside Pahi, which is a strong manoeuvre here if they can get that brace back. There they do. Here comes the chute. A little bit of a wrap in the weather guy, but it's come out now. Well, and they're in a strong position to attack on the last run. Logan Dunningbeck on the main sheet there. Well, she's no 49er. But finding a way to adapt to this type of racing. Turner back, another airy sailor from England. I guess still involved Etchells and the Stewart 34.
Just Steely, let you get your voice back there a little bit. Just getting some feedback directly into our POM system here with Scotty Dixon. Thanks for the great effort with getting our audio sorted. He's watching on the big screen at home. Remember that Roy Dixon used to sail Playboy, the entire Dixon on Playboy. And, we are going to get Roy Dixon into the commentating seat next year. We're going to work on getting all of the old boys out here watching and talking us through some of the history of the Stewart 34s. Because we are 60 years racing on the Waitemata, the Auckland Harbour, or however you pronounce the name of that. And thank you to everybody who has basically just bared with us through this very raw and real night of sailing in Auckland Harbour. It's been a big week in sport with the World Championships just down the harbour. You were commentating for Sky and for Sideline. Steely, this is a lot better than that though, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I mean, this type of racing is what we said, high octane. There's plenty of action out here. And the Stewart 34 is always creating plenty of... And it's Prince Hal. There we go, with a bit of a dab on the back. It's a bit of a horizon job there, isn't it? With the boys getting away clean up the start and extending all the way. They'll drop that spinnaker and it's going to be a race back to the bar from here. The chasing pack making their way down the final run for the last time.
Have a look at the flags of the flag.
See on the race committee boat they're displaying racing is finished for the day. AP over A. Time to go home. But not before you finish. Now for me, Sue Ellen here, it's all about timing of the drop. You know, the spinnaker should be coming down now because you don't want to sail any further past the finish than you have to. You should be turning up to head back for a cold one. And this is one way to break the crew. You look at them go here. They're going to end up some 5 or 6 boat lengths below before they make the turn back, and that's going to open the door for the real race back to the bar for Pahi, but they don't seem to want to have a bar of it either. As you see, the front runners just handing an opportunity to the back markers to get one back bragging rights for the finish. Passion, now there's a team who's got a bit more of an idea of where your priorities should lie on the last run. And it looks like they'll be making a big move here. Once they get that spinnaker down, they're going to turn around inside. Pahi and Playboy.
I'm sorry, I had to do it. No, you continue. You're saying some good stuff. You've got some good lines.
I'm just not sure, you know. I mean, these guys, they've been around the block a few times. They know their stuff, but you know, we've done 4 races today. As my box is falling to pieces. We've done 4 races today, and you know, you've got to be conscious of the crew. They put their head down and they work hard. And again, you know, good example here, Patari coming into the finish. They've still got their spinnaker pole on. I mean, God, they might as well end up down at Bayswater by the time they turn around. In fact, that bar's probably closer, so maybe they're onto something. And here we go. So this is what I was getting at earlier. Princess coming down one. Okay, they are in A division, but they don't sail the spinnaker. And well, they've beaten 2 boats that have spinnakers, so either I'm missing something here or old mate's onto onto an interesting tactic. But you watch, he's going to come. See, he's set up. Actually, he's set up well for this. Look, he's going to strip that sheet. It's going to fly off the pole, and he's on his way back to the bar. Nice, yeah, he knows. Nicely done. Bit of a hurry up and wait here a little bit for Prism. We've already seen have one interesting mark rounding today. But to be fair, you know, give them credit for pulling that back, because that could have gone horribly wrong. The spinnaker was hanging over the top of the race committee boat after they'd gone around the bottom gate. The spinnaker was almost set out some 20 odd metres to leeward of the boat. And well, it definitely grazed over the top of the race committee boat, but fortunately for them, no major damage, nothing got caught, and they did a nice job of pulling it back. And I appreciate giving us a wave over there. You can see me tucked away in my box, and well, let's keep an eye on this. Oh boy. Interesting technique on the Prism boat. Easing the halyard before anyone's got hold of the foot of the sail is certainly not one of the conventional ways of dropping a kite, but get it down any way you can. It's President here, coming in to round off our A Fleet finishes.
Well, that was definitely an interesting evening of fun and games here for the Stewart 34 Championship Series. How much fun was that for you?
Yep, I'll tell you, it was breathtaking. It was so exciting. You know, we've been covering yachting for the last week, and we haven't seen as much action as we have out here in the Stewart 34s. You know, it's never disappoints, does it? The breeze was up, and we got 4 good races in. We had our moments with the technical side of things, but resilient nonetheless, and we managed to bounce back and hopefully deliver you know, some good viewing to the spectators, because that's who it's all about, isn't it?
Absolutely, it's all about. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you for tuning in from Australia, America, Sweden. I think there was someone else, I can't quite remember, my brain's a bit hurting.
And there's a Namibian in there somewhere.
Oh, Manila.
Yeah.
Who else had someone from Manila?
No, there's some good content coming out, so see you on Wednesday next Stewart 34 racing.
We are back in the new year with a full packed schedule. As I said, tonight we did have a former Stewart 34 sailor all lined up to race. However, family commitments pulled him aside from that one. But we are going to try to get some of the old boys who raced many years ago in the Citizen Cup and all of that to come and do the co-commentating here. Roy Dixon, he's all lined up. He just has to figure out which day he's going to pick. Rod Davis. We're also working on a few others like Brad Butterworth and maybe even Coots.
All the legends, eh? All the legends of the sport. Absolutely awesome. Well, it'd be fun to get them out one night actually, and
I reckon we could do something for November as a fundraiser, get all those old boys out to jump into a Stewart 34 and do a night's racing. Be high octane stuff. But to all the viewers, Merry Christmas, have a Happy New Year. We won't be seeing you out here on the Stewart 34 fleet before then. Looks like Sue Ellen's had a couple of beverages early on. Struggling to, I'm not sure what's going on here. But
I don't know what happened then, but hey, you know what? Guess what? It's the silly season, and we are silly. And we've just
certainly
gone the
looking
wrong way
silly.
around.
But thanks for tuning in, guys. Have a safe Christmas, New Year, all that stuff. Keep sending us through your content, your comments, your selfies, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, we'll see you again in the new year.
All right, thank you so much, Steely. Thank you, Bevan. Let's get out of here. See you later.